Welcome to the 924S turbo build. There is a link if you're new and want to get caught up. Last week was quite successful, got the exhaust system on. There's some fiddling around I might do at the back, but it's pretty much the custom bits there, and if need be it could be bolted up and ready to go tomorrow. But the rest of the car's not there yet. So this week is all going to be about the intercooler piping. So it is essentially, we've got 2.5 inch down from the turbo to the intercooler, and then from the intercooler up to the 3 inch V6 throttle body. Essentially that's 3 inch straight out. The intercooler itself is 2.5 inch in and out, so obviously that needs to go up as we're coming out. The plan had been somewhat optimistic in that I was going to be cutting these and then welding them together. I say optimistic because I've had some success with aluminium welding, but not a huge amount. So that's been sidelined because I'm out of gas, but this is, I think, a stage that I need to get done next, or the thing that I want to get done next. Just to get everything in position. So hopefully I've got enough couplers to get me going. If not, things will just be kind of taped into place until I can get the relevant stuff that I need. So if we just have a look, and I'll show you kind of where things are as I've reassembled the engine. Now, when I say reassembled the engine, I mean in the loosest sense. The turbo is on there, obviously, with the drain, the feed for the oil and then the feed for the water coming back around this side. Obviously got the intake manifold on and throttle body, that needs to be there to connect to. I've also just popped the alternator back on. That's going to need to come off again, but I need to get an idea of where the belt is, and then also where the fuel lines are going to be coming up, roughly speaking. I know from here we're going to have hose coming out and going across and then in, but those are to follow. And then we've got the catch can mounted just there, and obviously the radiator and fan are on there as well. So that's most of the big stuff that I need to worry about. Having everything on there just makes life a lot easier because it allows me to see exactly where everything is, where everything's going to sit, and make sure that I don't cause myself any problems by putting things where they shouldn't be. I probably should have done that for a few other things, but it's too late for that now. But for this, I can see exactly what needs to go where and just start getting everything laid out. First of all, let's have a look and see exactly what I've got in here. I've bought far too much. I think this is because I was expecting to be building stuff up or cutting things down, welding bits together, and then just making lots of joins. So hopefully there's going to be enough in here for what we need to do. So let's have a quick flick through this, or I'll just get everything laid out so we can see where we're starting, and then I'm going to get on straight away and have a look at where we're coming at from the turbo side. It may all look nice and shiny, but I suspect I've over-ordered slightly in the number of boost pipes. So here we are, turbo side, and as you can see it's pointing upwards. It's just the way that I've had to clock it with the way that I've built the engine mount, which is a bit of a pain, but yeah, that is just the way that it is, what I need to deal with. So I've got a cast aluminium 90-degree bend. Two reasons for this. One, as you can see, I think, yeah, it turns a bit tighter than the equivalent in just standard aluminium. The other thing with it, or what I was going to try and do, was essentially knock the top off of the turbo outlet and just try and get this so that it will weld straight on, although that's actually too big, so it won't do that. But I had the original turbo from this, which is pretty much scrap. Cut everything, cleaned it all up, and then made a weld for that onto the turbo, and it looked an absolute mess. There's a problem welding cast aluminium just because, well, same with all cast metals actually, you don't really know what the quality of the material is. So I cleaned it up as much as possible, whacked a load of heat at it, and it just made a mess. It stuck, but then with the lightest of knocks it fell to pieces, whereas with the exhaust system I had something which was about that long, and it was held on with 3 tacks, and I was moving that around absolutely fine. So that's how weak that was. So I'm going to start with this section, just get this turned. So I've got a reducer to go from here, which is 2.5 inch down to 2 inch, and just get that down and get that turned, and then we'll have a look and see where things need to go from there. Okay, so this should fit nice and easily. I'm not going to bother with the clamps just yet. Let's just get everything in position. So that shoves on there quite nice and easily and goes all the way down, and that then pops. I want to try and do this in as few sections as possible. Almost forgot, that's where it's coming out of the intercooler. That pipe there comes all the way up here, so it's well inside to be clamped. This one comes basically there. This one's coming up to here. Obviously that's far too tall. So in terms of the turn, if it's there, let me just mark this off. That's where the end is. So if we work out from there. So I'll be cutting this with the big saw. But first of all, I just need to make sure that this is square. So I've just got the blade down and the set square, or the right angle, up against the blade, and use that. There you go, and that seems nice and square now. So all in all, that's actually gone quite well, and it isn't actually too bad of a fit. Certainly a lot better than I was expecting. So yeah, the thing with this, although the joiner's all the way up to there and will be clamped on, there's nothing there to stop it from coming off, although of course now it doesn't want to come off, and it's probably going to slightly damage my point. So what we need to do now is try and replicate something similar to this end here, where it's just out slightly, so that when the hose is over and the clamps on, it's got something to go against. So we're going to do a little experiment. This is something that I've seen online in terms of making sort of a DIY bead roller. So ordinarily, so that actually fitted a lot better than I was expecting. It's right up deep into the to the joiner, which is really good, and it was reasonably difficult to actually get that off. But there isn't anything on here at the top, so where on the bottom end you've got that bit there, there isn't anything on the top, so that's what we're going to have a look at next. Okay, the way that you would do this, or the way that these are made, is with a swaging tool or bead roller, depending on where you buy it from and what they call it. And essentially that's just a little roller that goes around the inside and winds up on the outside. There's a little beveled section that it pushes into, and then it pulls all of this up. But to get one of those, even just this little size thing, to do however many pipes I'm going to be doing, would cost me, I think it was about 150 or 160 pounds. So I didn't want to do that. Now there is a potential DIY method using these. It's essentially a crimping tool, and with the offcut, let's see, I might need to disable this because it's got a safety latch thing, which is just going to be a pain if this works. So essentially the idea is that we're going to use the section here to act as a bead roller type scenario. And I'll show you, well, let's see if it works on this first, and then we'll discuss the downside. This, okay, which should be apparent. So we'll just get that set up there. And oops, hopefully I've got the strength to do this. So it's kind of working, it's just pushing that out, stenting that in, and it's making some marks on the top section there. So I'm just going to use the angle grinder now to take off the sections that I don't need on this. Okay, so that has, it's all a bit wonky, but in fairness it's going to be inside the tube and nobody's actually going to see it. There's a couple bits which are slightly out or where I just wandered off going around. I'll have a look, but I'll put a timing in. I need to try and find out where I got this suggestion from, just so that I can credit the person that came up with it. It's something that I saw on the internet a very, very long time ago. I mean, these, as opposed to the B-roller, I think these were, I just bought them online for, I don't know, it's about 15, 16 pounds if I remember rightly. So from that perspective, actually it's quite economical, if not particularly tidy. The other option that you've got is if you have got a welder with some gas in it and you're half competent, is you can actually just go and put some beads, you did them, not necessarily a thing all the way around, but just some welds on there that are pronounced enough that it's going to stop it from dragging that off. So hopefully this will all still fit on nicely, and that's pretty much that side done. So I'm now hoping that I've got the parts that I need to get the cold side of this done, and this starts with the T-piece that's going into the intake. I've forgotten about this before, but we need a way of getting the little rascal recirculating valve attached. So that's what that's for. That little T-piece will just fit snugly and nicely on the end there. Just about clears everything. I don't know which way it's going to point because I don't know exactly where the intake's going to sit and where that's going to recirculate back to. Recirculating valve is just a blow-off valve for adults. So instead of making lots of noises and attracting lots of attention, it just sends the air back into the intake. So that's one part of it. I've also got now, that's quite heavy actually. So I've got a 60-degree bend, and then a 45 and probably some straight sections as well off of this. So this should give me everything that I need. The idea is going to be that it will 60-degree its way round, and then I will just get this down and it will go that way. So first job is just have a look and see where I need to start cutting the 60 and then bead rolling it so that it all just fits, because this is going to be quite tight in here. There isn't a lot of room in the T-piece. T-piece across and then flump down to the intercooler connection. Having had a look below and trying to get things in position, I think actually I need to start on the top. So I've got roughly where the pipe's going to be coming up from the bottom, and obviously there's going to be some movement in the hose up and down and left and right, and I think so my 60-degree section should just run across there. It is quite tight on the angle, so with the, I think you can kind of see the line there where that straightens, so I think that's about as far forward as I can afford to take this. So on this side, I think I've got more to play with. It might take a little bit of flex in the hoses just to get everything sort of where it needs to be once the clamps are on, but I think this is actually going to work. Intercooler out, that's 2.5, this is 3-inch, so that will basically come out of there, and I think if I cut this one about here, that should all meet up quite nicely. So I've spent a little bit of extra time on this one, just trying to get it right. The reason being is, and the reason that I've kind of shaved the edges a bit, although I might now do this some more, is the fit on this one is really, really tight on the 3-inch side. Okay, so that's everything made up, which is great. The challenge, as I said, is going to be getting that onto there. I can't find any knockout tips in terms of getting this done, so I'm just going to try and put a bit of lubricant on here, so this will dry out. It's not going to provide permanent I guess lubrication in there, which is the obviously because I don't want it coming off again, but I just need something to try and help get it on. So if this works, great. If not, I'm not going to spend forever trying to get this done. Not that I can afford to be throwing money around, but at the end of the day, life's too short, and if I need to use this for something else at some point and get another one ordered, then I'll just do that, I think. So let's see if we can get this on. I suspect I know the outcome to this because I've spent ages trying to get this done before, so it will be well, that wasn't quite what I had planned at the start. The idea was I was going to weld everything together beautifully and it was all going to just fit and be done. But having run out of welding gas, I've basically taken the decision to just get this in and done using the hoses, which is pretty much sorted. Ideally, well, the plan is that down the line I'm going to go back, learn how to weld pipes. That's why I've got so much spare, and then just get these remade. So there's one other thing which hasn't been fitted yet, the diverter valve, which I mentioned before. I think I'm going to need to change the orientation, and this is the forged one, which comes with different pressure springs. Haven't decided which one's going in yet, but yeah, so that just pops onto the T-piece, obviously with a clamp, and then a hose will disappear off down to the intake. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thoughts looking back? Oh, I really was about to give up on the Viper Performance one because it was so tight. The hose down on this side, and yeah, just putting it in boiling water with a little bit of soap in there, drinking a cup of tea was a timer, and then actually it fitted, which was a miracle. I was already almost ordered a replacement at lunchtime expecting it to not work, so that was an absolute godsend. I think in some ways slight vindication of my method for trying to get the oil hoses on. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Relatively straightforward, probably took longer than it should have done, but there we are. I'm not entirely sure what's coming next, as it all comes down to, at the moment, availability of parts and what have you, but progress is being made thick and fast. So thanks as always for watching, and hopefully catch you on the next one, as we're edging ever closer to trying to get this thing started. Cheers for watching. Bye now.